What's up, guys? Today we're going to do our mechanics analysis on Kingdom Hearts 2, specifically the Final Mix version. So according to the framework that we've been taught about mechanics, there's a loop that is involved, which usually starts with affordance, action, effect, and feedback. And all of those can inform us about our last factor, game state. So Kingdom Hearts is a game with a lot of intrinsic mechanics, but today I would like to cover 3 of those mechanics. So let's dive in. First on the list of mechanics that we are going to cover today is an aspect of Kingdom Hearts that has been persistent throughout the entire series, and that would be magic. The affordance of magic in Kingdom Hearts 2, as well as many of the other installments of the series, is that below attack in that bottom left command menu, there will be magic. And right next to magic text, it will be that little wizard hat. Sometimes after beating bosses or completing objectives, you will notice that in the rewards that you'll also see the same wizard's hat, denoting that you've either obtained new magic or stronger forms of magic that you've already had. As for the actual action of using magic, there are 2 ways that you can use magic. One is you press down or up on the D-pad to navigate through that command menu, and you will select magic using X, which is like the universal confirmation button. When you do press magic on the command menu, there's a drop-down list of magic at your disposal. Here is all of the magic that is in Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. Then within that drop-down menu, you can navigate to see which magic you want to use, and when you have a magic selected, you can press X to perform said magic. The second way of using magic, and the most simple way, is to hold L1, and by holding L1, the command menu will be replaced by a shortcut menu, and you will see these 4 button prompts that are assigned based off of what you have assigned prior. So all you need to do would be to hold L1 and press any of these buttons to perform those actions. And with an action, there's an effect. So what is the effect of using magic? Well, generally it will kind of depend on what magic you use, but there are some general commonalities of the effects of using magic. The most important factor is that all magic uses MP. So whenever you use magic, they will shave off a certain amount of MP on your MP bar. And the amount of MP shaved off depends on the type of magic, because they each shave off a different amount of MP. Almost all of the magic is also used to damage and attack enemies, so when they connect, it will stagger enemies and they will also damage enemies as well. Meanwhile, if you use Cure, instead of damaging enemies, you actually heal yourself and or your fellow party members. And what would be the feedback of using magic? Well, you will have magic particles of the corresponding magic that you use, and you'll also hear the sound effects of said magic whenever you connect with an enemy or hit something, which also correlates to enemies now having less health since you're able to hit them with magic. Your MP bar will not be as full, and when you completely run out of MP, you will now have a pink MP bar that signifies that you're now recharging MP. You cannot use magic until the pink bar completely empties, which switches back into the blue bar. And if you used Cure, then you will notice that you and or your party member's health is now back to full. And also lastly, you will notice that if you use offensive magic spells, they also regain a bit more of your drive gauge. So with the conclusion of the magic loop, what will be the game state of this? Well, using magic in general will decrease your MP value until it's 0. So when it's 0, the game will implement a sort of cooldown system before you can use magic again, which in that case it will fill up your MP all the way up to full. If you used offensive magic spells and you managed to hit the enemies, now the enemies will have lower HP values. And if you used Kier, then you and or your other party members will have their HP values increased. And lastly, damaging enemies with offensive magic will increase your drive gauge values. And you're probably wondering and asking me, what is drive? Like, what is the point of the drive gauge? Well, let me introduce you to one of my favorite mechanics of Kingdom Hearts 2. Easily one of the most major additions from Kingdom Hearts 1 to Kingdom Hearts 2 was the addition of Drive Forms, which allows Sora to transform into these enhanced modes where there will be certain parts of his kit that will be modified. So how would you be able to access these forms? Well, on the command menu, there is the option to select Drive, which will be the bottom option. The game's UI will also give you the drive gauge, which will be where the HP and the MP bars are, and since it says drive, you know that it has something to do with drive forms. And how would you turn into these drive forms? Well, very similar to Magic, you just navigate in the command menu, and once you get the drive, you select it, and after selecting drive, you will see this drop-down menu, which will show you the 5 drive forms that you can manually turn into. There is a 6th drive form that you can get by chance, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So, what are the effects of transforming into a drive form? Well, if enemies get caught into the explosion, then they will get damaged and knocked up. You'll also see that turning into drive forms, if you don't have a full HP or MP bars, those things will fill right back up. And instead of 9 on the drive gauge, you will see 5. Why is that? Well, that's because the drive form that I transformed into deducts 4 from the drive gauge. The amount that is deducted from the drive gauge depends on which form you turn into. So, Valor and Wisdom form, they take 3 from the drive gauge. Limit and Master form take 4 from the drive gauge. And Final form takes 5 from the drive gauge. If you do manage to get anti-form, it takes all of your current drive gauge from you. As for what just happened, well, first of all, the transformation. In the transformation, now there's a big explosion coming out from Sora. He's glowing, you hear like a glass shatter sound effect, and the screen around Sora turns dark. So after all of the visual effects that happens with the explosion clears up, now you'll see Sora in different clothing, and he will be in a different pose, signifying that he has changed form. Also, you'll notice something interesting. Sometimes, in certain forms, you now have 2 Keyblades. Or, if this is anti-form, you have no Keyblades. When you actually start to attack, use magic, or even move around in these drive forms, you'll actually start to notice that all of these animations and all of your attacks and movesets are altered and changed. Finally, if you take a look at the drive gauge, not only does it look a bit different, but now it is incrementing down bit by bit. Basically, what this means is that now the drive gauge acts as a timer for the duration of your drive form. Successfully attacking and using magic against enemies will also increase the rate of the consumption of the drive gauge timer. So as you can see with this current gameplay, while I'm in limit form, when I'm attacking this boss using Keyblade combos or my special abilities, you'll notice that each move, each attack, will decrease the drive gauge counter more and more. So, with all of that in order, what does the game state inform us about drive forms? Well, initially, when you transform into a drive form, your HP and MP values completely revert back to full. During the transformation process, your character is invulnerable for the duration of the transformation until it ends. And depending on the drive form that you turn into, a certain amount of drive gauge will be deducted from the total amount. Once you're in free control of your character, the game will give you an entirely new moveset. Reaction commands. It is the other major addition to Kingdom Hearts 2. Out of all of the mechanics that we have covered, reaction commands are the mechanic that this game incentivizes the most use of. Let's start with the affordances of reaction commands. So, when a reaction command is available, you'll normally see some sort of triangle prompt, like there's like a triangle on an enemy, either as like just a graphical triangle or like the literal triangle button is on the enemy, telling you to push, or it says chance. Also, there will be like this green pop-up that is on the top of the command menu that will show the reaction command's name and as well as the triangle button. So, how would you do a reaction command, you might say? What is the action of inputting a reaction command? Well, if it isn't apparent enough, you press the triangle button. There are many things that the reaction commands do because they are implemented in so many of the functions of this game. To give you a list, they can damage enemies, they might reposition you, they might reward you, they might give you a buff to use against your enemies. It could be a functionality of a minigame, and you can also talk to NPCs. The feedback of reaction commands also depends on the context of how the reaction commands are used in the game. Although generally when you do press that triangle button to do a reaction command, the green pop-up on the command menu will pulsate a green triangle light, so that means the game knows that you did press that triangle button. In certain boss battles, reaction commands can also be used in like a more traditional QuickTime event sort of format. The game will keep signaling you with the green pop-up that appears on the pop-up menu and the triangle prompt that appears usually on the enemy or object of interest until the QuickTime event ends. And in an extreme case, sometimes the game will make you press the triangle button so much that it just feels like you're high-key gonna have carpal tunnel. So, like with the variety of effects and the variety of feedback, reaction commands will put the game in a variety of game states depending on how the reaction commands are used. For reaction commands that are used to deal damage to enemies, enemies will now have lower health. A good amount of reaction commands will put you in a scripted cinematic action, either in what looks like some sort of QuickTime event or some special animation. Reaction commands that function within a minigame can reward you with things such as money or items, so the game will add those things into your inventory. In the context of talking to characters or in the story, reaction commands will either put you in a dialogue scene or full-blown will put you in a cutscene. So, that's my mechanics analysis of Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix. I hope y'all have a good day.
Shut the fuck up, bitch.